We should recognize that this stuff is an existential threat. And we have to face the possibility that unless we do something soon, we're near the end.
He's choosing that word carefully. Existential. Not dramatic, not symbolic. When a scientist like this uses that word, it's usually because he doesn't see an easy way out.
My main mission now is to warn people how dangerous AI could be. I was quite slow to understand some of the risks. Some of the risks were always very obvious, like people would use AI to make autonomous lethal weapons. That is, things that go around deciding by themselves who to kill. Other risks, like the idea that they would one day get smarter than us and maybe would become irrelevant, I was slow to recognize that. Other people recognized it 20 years ago. I only recognized it a few years ago that that was a real risk that might be coming quite soon. Remember, neural networks 20 or 30 years ago were very primitive in what they could do. They were nowhere near as good as humans at things like vision and language and speech recognition. The idea that you have to now worry about it getting smarter than people, that seems silly then.
ChatGPT. For most people, AI felt abstract until one release.
It changed for the general population when ChatGPT came out. It changed for me when I realized that the kinds of digital intelligences we're making have something that makes them far superior to the kind of biological intelligence we have. If I want to share information with you, so I go off and I learn something, and I'd like to tell you what I learned. So I produce some sentences. This is a rather simplistic model, but roughly right. Your brain is trying to figure out, how can I change the strengths of connections between neurons so I might have put that word next? And so you'll do a lot of learning when a very surprising word comes, and not much learning when it's a very obvious word. Nobody really knows for sure how the brain works, and nobody knows how it gets the information about whether you should increase the strength of a connection or decrease the strength of a connection. That's the crucial thing. But what we do know now from AI is that if you could get information about whether to increase or decrease the connection strength so as to do better at whatever task you're trying to do, then we could learn incredible things, because that's what we're doing now with artificial neural nets. First of all, I want to make a distinction between two completely different kinds of risk. There's risks that come from people misusing AI, and that's most of the risks and all of the short-term risks. And then there's risks that come from AI getting super smart and deciding it doesn't need us. And I talk mainly about that second risk because lots of people say, is that a real risk? And yes, it is.
The second risk is harder to talk about because we don't have experience with it. No historical example, no instinct, no proven way to stay in control. That honesty is important. He's not selling certainty. He's saying we don't know yet. He doesn't say this will definitely end badly. He gives a range.
It's very hard to estimate the probabilities in between. I simply don't know. So if I had to bet, I'd say the probabilities in between, and I don't know where to estimate it in between. I often say 10 to 20% chance they'll wipe us out.
10% sounds small until you realize what the outcome could be. We don't ignore risks like that in any other part of life. Now let's bring this down to everyday life. Jobs. What disappears first are not professions. It's tasks, repetitive writing, routine analysis, basic coordination, clerical work, quiet changes, system by system. So why not stop AI development? Because no one will.
We're not going to stop it because it's too good for too many things. Also, we're not going to stop it because it's good for battle robots, and none of the countries that sell weapons are going to want to stop it.
It improves medicine, education, science, and no country wants to fall behind. The real issue is not intelligence, it's control.
What we need is, at this point in history, when we're about to produce things more intelligent than ourselves, what we really need is a kind of world government that works, run by intelligent, thoughtful people. And that's not what we got.
We regulate companies, we regulate citizens, but often we avoid regulating ourselves. This is not a story about evil machines. It's a story about how humans handle power. AI will do extraordinary good, but only if it's guided carefully.
Let's talk about all the risks from bad human actors using AI. there's cyber attacks. So between 2023 and 2024, they increased by about a factor of 1,200%. And that's probably because these large language models make it much easier to do phishing attacks. They send you something saying, hi, I'm your friend John, and I'm stuck in El Salvador. Could you just wire this money? That's one kind of attack. But the phishing attacks are really trying to get your logon credentials, a smaller version of that, which is some people now publish papers with me as one of the authors. And it looks like it's in order that they can get lots of citations to themselves. And these already, obviously AI is very patient, so they can go through 100 million lines of code looking for known ways of attacking them. That's easy to do, but they're going to get more creative. And some people believe, and some people who know a lot believe that maybe by 2030, they'll be creating new kinds of cyber attacks, which no person ever thought of. So that's very worrisome. They can draw new conclusions from much more data than a person ever saw. It's one of the few places where I changed what I do radically because I'm scared of cyber attacks. Canadian banks are extremely safe. In 2008, no Canadian banks came anywhere near going bust. So they're very safe banks because they're well regulated. Fairly well regulated. Nevertheless, I think a cyber attack might be able to bring down a bank. Now, if you have all my savings are in shares in banks, held by banks. So if the bank gets attacked and it holds your shares, they're still your shares. And so I think you'd be okay unless the attacker sells the shares, because the bank can sell the shares. If the attacker sells your shares, I think you're screwed. I don't know. I mean, maybe the bank would have to try and reimburse you, but the bank's bust by now, right? So I'm worried about a Canadian bank being taken down by a cyber attack and the attacker selling shares that it holds. So I spread my money, my children's money, between 3 banks, in the belief that if a cyber attack takes down one Canadian bank, the other Canadian banks will very quickly get very careful. I have a little disk drive and I back up my laptop on this hard drive. So I actually have everything on my laptop on a hard drive. At least, if the whole internet went down, I had the sense I still got it on my laptop and I still got my information. Yeah. Then the next thing is using AIs to create nasty viruses. And the problem with that is that just requires one crazy guy with a grudge, one guy who knows a little bit of molecular biology, knows a lot about AI, and just wants to destroy the world. You can now create new viruses relatively cheaply using AI. And you don't have to be a very skilled molecular biologist to do it. And that's very scary. So you could have a small cult, for example. And a small cult might be able to raise a few $1 million. For a few $1 million, they might be able to design a whole bunch of viruses. Now, they'd be worried about retaliation. They'd be worried about other governments doing the same to them. Hopefully that would help keep it under control. They might also be worried about the virus spreading to their country. Then there's corrupting elections. So if you wanted to use AI to corrupt elections, a very effective thing is to be able to do targeted political advertisements where you know a lot about the person. So anybody who wanted to use AI for corrupting elections would try and get as much data as they could about everybody in the electorate. With that in mind, it's a bit worrying what Musk is doing at present in the States, going in and insisting on getting access to all these things that were very carefully siloed. The claim is it's to make things more efficient, but it's exactly what you would want if you intended to corrupt the next election. You can send messages that they'll find very convincing, telling them not to vote, for example. So I have no reason other than common sense to think this, but I wouldn't be surprised if part of the motivation of getting all this data from American government sources is to corrupt elections. Another part might be that it's very nice training data for a big model. And what they've done is turned off lots of the security controls, got rid of some of the organization to protect against that. Then there's creating these 2 echo chambers by organizations like YouTube and Facebook, showing people things that will make them indignant. People love to be indignant, feeling I'm sort of angry but feeling righteous. So, for example, if you were to show me something that said, Trump did this crazy thing, here's a video of Trump doing this completely crazy thing, I would immediately click on it. Policy that YouTube and Facebook and others use for deciding what to show you next is causing that. If they had a policy of showing you balanced things, they wouldn't get so many clicks and they wouldn't be able to sell so many advertisements. And so it's basically the profit motive is saying, show them whatever will make them click. And what will make them click is things that are more and more extreme that confirm my existing bias. So you're getting your biases confirmed all the time. Basically, if you have a newspaper and everybody gets the same newspaper, you get to see all sorts of things you weren't looking for. And you get a sense that if it's in the newspaper, it's an important thing or significant thing. But if you have your own news feed, my news feed on my iPhone 3/4 of the stories are about AI. And I find it very hard to know if the whole world's talking about AI all the time or if it's just my newsfeed. The atomic bomb was really only good for one thing, and it was very obvious how it worked. Even if you hadn't had the pictures of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it was obvious that it was a very big bomb that was very dangerous.
So here's the real question. Not for the future, for right now. Are we moving faster than our ability to stay in control or not? Write what worries you most. Jobs, control, cyber attacks,